Just so folks know, welcome to CS Office Hours. Today's session is CS Program Maturity. How do you know what stage your CS program is in? This is something that Mohammad Alqaq had been discussing with me. He has this fantastic community and webpage over in Middle East customer success. And he was saying, hey, not everybody's at the same stage. You know, there's some folks who are still trying to figure out what CS is. And I knew that Rachel had already put together some resources around this topic as well. So I thought, what a great topic for CS Office Hours. So that's why we're digging in today. And let's go ahead then with Rachel starting, and then Mohammed, go ahead and do a quick introduction for everybody.
Awesome. Well, hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm so excited to finally be able to attend and present on CS Office Hours. It's usually when I'm taking care of my little kids, but yay, East Coast hours. So I've been in CS for 17 years, with 15 of those in leadership. 2 years ago, I pivoted to the coaching side of things. So now I teach new CS leaders how to build and scale world-class CS departments with a focus on psychology and mindset. And what I'm going to share about today, I actually came up with when I was still in seat, but it's something that I do a lot of teaching around and develop sort of a framework around it. So I'm excited to share it with you guys.
Yay. All right. Oh.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I think you know me, or you have recognized me, or recognized the face or the name. I've been a big fan of the office hours since almost a year now. But this time I'm on the other side of the table trying to present what I've learned over the years. I'm based in Jordan. It's 1 hour before midnight here, still early. I've been in customer success and customer facing role for the last 18 years, and I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've worked with a one-man show company to an enterprise company, and I dealt with customers from all sizes. And you know, the reason I started to talk to Jan about this subject is, you know, I felt we are somehow in a very advanced stage talking about very advanced topics, and where people, they are still trying to transition to CS, and they don't know what it is and how they can work their first steps towards the customer success. So thank you, Jen, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this topic, and maybe start a discussion over the Slack after this session to continue our discussion about, you know, transitioning to customer success. There is a lot of things that you need to be aware of. It's not a rocket science, but it's not that easy, and you need to understand what it takes to be a good customer success manager.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
All right. No, thank you. So let's go ahead and get the slides up just to also reinforce. We're recording the session. You can raise your hand or just come off mute to ask questions or contribute your ideas. They're all contributions and all welcome. And, you know, be sure to build your network while you're here, and we're all here to learn and share insights together. So regarding then the topic being, this is a CS Office Hours, and CS Program Maturity is our topic today. Thought it might be good to just start off by just level setting, like what is the purpose of a CS program? Because sometimes people are confused about that. And digging into also just about customer data. So first, I'll just say a few things, and I know that Rachel and Mo will also have some thoughts on this. I did share just some definitions about the roles. These are quick definitions. They're not the ultimate definitions, but they're quick ones just to be sure you have it as a reference. And we have you have access to these slides. You can download these slides for yourself. But so we have onboarding or implementation professional services. We have that first stage that the customer, after they've signed on the dotted line, right? And then there's account managers, CSMs, support, you know, kind of what are all the different types of roles that you might see in an organization for that's handling post sales, right? The purpose of a CS program is to ensure that there's delivery of the product and the experience for the customer so that they're going to achieve their goals, right? They're coming to you to purchase product or services in order to do something in their business, right? And so it's what you need to do after they've signed on the dotted line is to ensure that they are able to do that. So onboarding is certainly a stage, adoption, leading to optimization, these types of things that you want to be sure that you're doing. Support is key, because if problems come up, how are they going to learn what they're going to do, right? To address whatever challenges they're having. But also then how you think about your customer data, and are you doing anything about their customer data, right? Is also something to consider and think about when you're building the program. Mo, I know you're kind of ready to speak to some of this as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, actually, the main key or the key difference between all those roles is the majority are transactional engagements, and customer success is a strategic engagement that it has a start, but there is no end. You keep going and you keep improving. But customer support, whenever you receive a ticket, you fix the ticket and you are done. That transaction is completed. But with customer success, you are strategic. You lead a strategic engagement that, it has a start, but there is no end. It's continuous, it's ongoing, and it's growing and improving. So this is the key difference between all the roles.
That's a really good point, because certainly onboarding, you want to be sure that there's an end to that onboarding, that there's a launch, whether it's the initial launch or as they're adding new products, that there's a launch to that it's acknowledged and celebrated so they know when they've launched it, right? Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's the same for the implementation, or if you are delivering a professional service, it's a project. It has a start and end dates, but for the customer success, it's ongoing.
Yep.
And because we are strategic and because we lead a strategic engagement, we need to look at the data, and we need to have the data as our best friend. And being in that role or starting in that role, you will start to see a lot of data coming from all different sources. Now, all those data you have are raw data. If they are not sorted in a way that it can become an information, it brings no value. So we need to be very careful, and we need to treat the data and really very carefully in order to get those raw data and start to sort them in a way that they will become an information that will give us ability to organize them in a way that we can visualize them. And based on that visualization, we can build the story. We can collect data from all sources, but if we cannot organize it in a way, we cannot tell the customer the story. If we cannot tell the story, we cannot improve. We cannot build the future initiatives based on the story we are telling them today, because that raw data is still raw and it has no meaning.
Well, and I think that's a great point, because then from there, you can make it actionable, not just for your CS team, but also for your customers. You can let your customers know this is how well you've optimized, or how much you've adopted using the product versus others who have been using the product as long or whatever. Like you can, try to incentivize them to want to adopt or optimize. In the same sense, whether you're using AI or some of the tools that are out there today, there are ways in which you can instruct your CS team, if you're a leader, or as a CSM, you can identify what actions are most purposeful for and how you should prioritize your actions. Yeah,
absolutely. So this applies to your customer data, to your internal data, to your tools, to your processes, and to your team. So you collect the data from all sources, and then you start to build the story based on what you have.
And that's also then part of why we've sort of incorporated not only the specialization of the teams, but also the data, right, of these different phases and what you're doing with the data in each of these phases. Rachel, do you want to maybe speak to the maturity model a little bit? I don't know if you wanted to add in anything to the earlier slide.
Two quick things.
Yeah.
One, it's really funny because I didn't draw this connection before, but a lot of times I'll explain that the maturity model, I have a version where it's like every single initiative you need, and I call it the Lego instruction module, the Lego instruction manual for CS. Because you need like this goes first, then put this here, then do this and that. Not that the same thing will work for everyone, but you need to answer the same sort of questions. To figure out what kind of model you need and how to make things happen. One thing I'll say about data, just in case anyone is like me, I value data so much. And I also know that I shouldn't be the person slicing and dicing it. I am not a visual person. And so even though I was a CS leader for a long time, what I would often do is ask if anyone on my team loved data. Because I swear to you, just like there's always going to be someone like me who's like, ugh. There's always going to be someone who's like, I love data. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. Let me slice and dice it. And then that's off your plate, so long as they're good at it. That's off your plate. And you now have a reason to brag about them. So I highly recommend that if you yourself are like not a data person and afraid to admit it. Because as you will see, you can't really do much without data. You're going to stay stuck in reactive. Like it's essential. It's about knowing how to leverage it. It's also, as you were saying, not the beginning and end. I see a lot of people look at data and be like, okay, now I have all these insights. But then they have that sort of hit of dopamine from getting the insights. Like if you research a topic, but then don't actually change anything because you feel like, yeah, I know so much more now. It almost satisfies that urge. And it's why a lot of people can get stuck when they just look at the data. You have to make sure you're using it to drive action and not just give you information.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the point? So you have the data. If it doesn't change anything, if it doesn't drive you to do something, if you don't tell a story from it, then sort of who cares?
Yeah.
So I think then in terms of the maturity stages though, like I think people are probably anxious to talk about it.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of, especially early stage CS programs, whether it's an enterprise company that has just started to build a CS program, or if it's an early stage, startup, or really at any stage, you can stay stuck in that reactive mode, right?
Yeah.
And I think we know if we're in that reactive mode when everything is a fire drill, when everything feels out of control, when everything is sort of overwhelming and you're just like, oh, I've got a call, I'll do that. Oh, I've got an email, I'll do that. And you're just kind of going from one to the next, to the next, to the next, as opposed to setting your schedule and that sort of thing. And I know that's also something you talk a lot about, Rachel, is the power to empowering yourself to set that schedule.
Yeah, really taking ownership over your calendar and your schedule. I think an interesting thing about the reactive phase, I'm going to quickly go through these, what they are, how to know where you are. The thing about this model is that if you don't do all the things you need to do and sort of reach that milestone of you have to be able to do this to be done with this phase, you can think you're in the informed stage, you can think you're in the proactive stage, and you'll be wondering, why am I still scrambling? Why aren't we doing anything better? It's like, because you never fully got out of the reactive stage. You didn't build the foundations the way you needed to, because it's a pain in the butt. And it's not incredibly rewarding. It's not flashy. It's not sexy. I call it eating your broccoli. Sometimes you got to serve a little chocolate with the broccoli to the C-suite, but they're going to be sitting there being like, hi, it's been 6 months. Why are you like drawing up plans and documents? And it's like, well, here's what I'm doing and here's what you're going to get out of it. I want the same thing you do. Here's how we get there. And this is what I'm doing right now. So, everybody starts out in reactive. So if you're in reactive, that's okay. You're just at the start and there's a way out. You're not going to be stuck forever. So what I define reactive mode is that you're not really able to have much insights into your customers. You're probably going to multiple sources of information, like maybe some's over here in Salesforce, maybe some's here in Looker, if you even have telemetry of any kind. Maybe some is over here in NetSuite, and like I've had them in 5, 6 different places. There's some in, the black hole of Google Docs. And if you want to know what's going on with one customer, never mind like your book of 80, there's just no way to have your finger on the pulse of what's really going on. There's no ability to really get much of a customer health score in that way, other than customer sentiment, where it's like, yeah, they seem pissed at us. Or haven't talked to them. Does that mean they're yellow? Does that mean they're red? A lot of times companies will push you to get like, well, we need a customer health score. It's like, we don't have any data. So there's a lot that you'll have to do of like explaining, yes, we want that too. It's never, we can't do that yet. It's yes, we want that too. Here's how we get there. So this first reactive stage is all about, it's before your data is in place. The first thing I tell people to do in this phase is talk to your boss, talk to the CEO, talk to whoever you have to talk to say, we need to clean up our data. We need to clean up our CRM. We need to clean up, get our usage data, make sure that's accurate, and just start cleaning that up, because it's going to take time. It's going to keep getting pushed, and you can't move on to the informed stage until it's cleaned up. I'm not saying you should be the one to clean it up. I'm saying you need to start with that and get urgency behind it.
Well, and a lot of times too, you can do that too, when you start to pull together what you do know about your customers with what data you do have.
Yes.
And then they'll start
to be perfect.
Yeah. And then they'll start to ask like, oh, wow, this is great. What about this? What about that? And they'll ask you questions. Say, I would love to get that together, but you know what? I don't have access to it because of X or Y. Can we work on, one of those things? They're like, oh yeah, let's do that. And then they see the importance of it, right?
Yes, exactly. So,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, that's something that you just want to set in motion. But then during that reactive phase, what you're going to want to do before you get a CS tool is not going to solve all your problems. You need to figure out, who are our customers? Like, are they in different segments, not just, in terms of pricing, but like different industries? Are they trying to achieve different things? Is this whole group here trying to achieve the same thing? You just need to know who your customers are and what they're trying to achieve with your product, what business outcome. And then from there, you have to figure out, for each of those segments and journeys, each of those needs to be its own customer journey. But just, who are our customers? What are they trying to do? And how do we get them there? How do we build their own, map or instruction manual? They do this, we do this, it gets them there. I actually believe on a customer journey map, it's a huge mistake not to have goal achievement right in the middle. So I believe it should be onboarding, adoption, goal achievement, expansion, renewal, advocacy, because once you hit goal achievement, those other things follow. Once you have those in place, those journeys and those segments, and you've separated from support, because there's no way you're going to focus on success and get less reactive if you are customer support. That's sort of, you're teeing everything up to be able to put it in a system and speed things up. So the informed phase is the entire part of trying to, of just picking which CS tool is right for you. The evaluation, installation, and getting it up and running. So it's always going to be crawl, walk, run. If you don't have a CS tool, it takes a while to implement it. If your data is not, decent enough to be clean going forward, you're really going to struggle to get anything out of it. It will basically just allow you to make a big mess really quickly. But so you'll notice, and this is the thing that freaks a lot of people out, maybe you notice the year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, that's pretty typical. These things aren't snap your fingers. But that really is the bridge that allows you to get proactive. You know, even before you're able to really, you know, use the tool in a way that's going to say, oh, this is happening, this is bad, go correct it. Just having all your information in one place, not 5 different silos, is going to be a huge game changer in terms of just knowing what's going on with your clients and being able to take action. So there is instant value, even if it's not the full value that it will have. Each of these
but it's
stages has value. Yeah,
What
go
were you
ahead.
gonna say, Mo?
yeah, but just to add, it all depends on the data, how
Yeah.
you bring it in and how you sort it. You know, if you bring the raw data as is without any meaning and you just dump it on that tool, it will not give you any feedback. It will not feed you with more information to build your decision. So it's really important to look at your data and to sort it before you start to implement it or to import it to your system. Because if you start to import every source of data to your system, it will not give you any positive or any useful feedback or any useful information that you can build your decision based on.
Right. And since we want to go to breakout rooms in a couple of minutes, let's sort of speed this up a little bit. But so just about that then, obviously, if you're going to have a CS tool, you want to figure out your customer base segments and your journey and some of those key items around your playbooks, some of those things you want to work through ahead of time. And you're better off at trying those things out before you have tools, to be sure that you sort of kick the tires on a little bit. So that way you're not paying for a tool that's just sitting there doing nothing for you. So when you start to do that, and you can start to then be more proactive, right, with your team, and analyzing your data and starting, you know, and some of the things we were talking about earlier in terms of being proactive, from there, then you would be able to actually get predictive. And when you're predictive, or also sort of in the notes here, prescriptive, that's when you can start to project what the revenue is going to be post sales, project what your revenue, who might actually have white space, right, in terms of like who might be able to work better with your products and tools and achieve their business outcomes by purchasing another product from you, where you're able to kind of show that connection, right? You know, I'm trying to, you know, like, it's not just about selling them a product, it's about connecting it to what their goals and objectives are, right? And how then you can actually start to look at the slices within those customer base segments of who might be then ready for another tool or to upsell to them and things like that. Rachel, what are some of the key things you want to mention around proactive and predictive stages?
Yeah, I'll tighten it up here. Proactive is where you're starting to finally be able to use that data to say, to get in front of it, to be able to see signals of like, oh, they're starting to go off the rails. We know what good looks like, and this isn't it. So let's get in there. Or, you know, risk and expansion. You know, that was a risk. Oh, things are going really well here. We know that they expand after that. So that's sort of, you're still testing. You think you know, but you're still not 100% sure. You're getting to the point where you're like, yes, we know this for everyone. We know this is what precedes that to a predictable degree. There's a strong correlation here. That's when you're at predictive prescriptive, when you're like, yeah, exactly as Jan said, you know, a lot of this can become more digital. We can put those processes in place because we know what this means. And when you can do that, you get to do even more fun stuff like, you know, scale models and webinars and, you know, customer advisory boards. No, those don't belong at the very beginning. You know, but you're able to do a lot more fun things. I'm sure AI will speed some of this up a lot. You know, I think that customer intelligence tools, different thing than CS tools, your CS tool is not going to tell you what these things are. You've got to figure those out, but customer intelligence tools do. So I think
And
that
that's
was
AI that you're speaking to.
that's AI. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's basically the difference. Like you're in proactive till you're like, yes, we've proven these assumptions.
Yeah.
Like we've created calls to action, but they're not automatic. Now we don't need to take the action. These things we know and we can automate. So now we can get even more strategic with the actions that we're taking.
Right. I do have some definitions here I mentioned. I forgot to add renewals manager. There's all different kinds of ways you can specialize. And we did have a session recently about specialization. Another thing, just we will continue the conversation, not just in our breakout, but also, as I showed earlier, the CSOH session resources channel has that. And we all are going to be announcing next week collaboration groups for CS leaders and CSMs and folks transitioning to CS. We'll have other places coming soon as well. But the questions that we want you to really dig into and discuss in the breakout rooms are: what CS program stage have you worked in or are you currently working in? And what has been the most effective initiative to move forward in maturing your CS program that you've seen? Does everybody have access? Oh, I see over in the chat. So over here, you'll see the breakout session notes. Be sure to get the breakout session notes here. Everyone have that and ready to go? Yeah. All right. I'm going to, any last questions as I set up the breakout groups? Last comments? You good? Ready? All right.
Cool.
Woohoo! So welcome back from the breakout. So what was happening in group 6 and group 9? What kinds of conversations were happening? Any aha moments? What stage is your team in? Did you decide? If anybody want to share what stage you're in?
I say most of us had talked about we've either worked in or currently working in a little bit more of that reactive, and some want to move from reactive to informed. And the data definitely came up as a topic of, you can think you're doing great, but if you don't have that kind of backbone to it, it's not moving forward. I think one other thing, and Patricia, you can expand on this if you'd like. Patricia brought up a great point about as you mature, getting more mature in your stakeholder management, and how even within a customer, like getting to know more folks within that customer, just in case someone leaves or something.
Multi-threading, absolutely. Really important to know more than just one stakeholder in an account, right?
Rod just had a huge discussion about that in his LinkedIn threads.
Who did?
Rod Cherkis.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, because if you're not multi-threaded, then you're completely dependent on that one person who may or may not be a decision maker, who may or may not have a lot of influence within the company, or who might just be moving on or could get laid off. You know, you never really know what's going to happen in your customer's company, right?
That's the number one thing I'm hearing about is like, the champion leaving and having nobody else. Like, you can't be reliant on that one person, like, especially right now. That's like the number one way to lose a perfectly happy client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I don't think that client was happy if you only had one person. Like that one person might have been happy, the client might not have been happy. And I think that's one of the things is that as you showed that maturity model, which was great, you're really not mature if you don't have a good stakeholder connection, of a multiple stakeholder connection. Yeah. And I have found, especially in today's economy, that's more and more and more important. And we also talked in our group about how setting up that journey and maybe involving sales to help us set up that journey allows them to give us a little more stakeholders or a little more value when they hand it over to us, because they see the journey and they see the value to them in the end.
Yeah.
Right. Is keeping that relationship with the executive stakeholder, the whatever, the buyer, the decision maker, you know, a lot of different names for it. But if you aren't keeping that relationship strong and transferring that over from the sales process to the post-sales process, then yeah, you're going to have some challenges later on, even if you're just trying to renew or, you know, any of that. Great point, Patricia. Natasha, did that bring up something in your mind?
Yeah, just a little discussion around value, because one of the things that we did do at my previous company, and I kind of spearheaded this initiative, is once we eventually did get to our ICP, right? That happened around the start of year 3.
Ideal
And-
customer profile was something
Yes,
you
ideal customer
identified
profile.
by
Yeah,
year 3? Okay.
yeah. So one of the things I proposed is, why don't we just set up a cross-functional team now that we have our ICP? Why don't we just put together, you know, look at all our use cases, all of our standard use cases that support our target market, and templatize defining per use case, defining those outcomes and what would be good metrics to measure those outcomes, right? And if it's anything, if you do have multiple industries, which we did, you know, you definitely want to make it sure it's customized to reflect the outcomes for that industry. And, you know, a good source for putting that together would also be, you know, customers as well, and templatize it. And that way you can, it could be leveraged by marketing, it could be leveraged by sales to support the value sale process, and then tweaked in the sales cycle based on what the customer really decides upon. Then it goes on to success planning, and then it transitions into the post-sales teams, right? And it just kind of, so they're all, you know, because I think everybody in the post-sale world needs to be talking about value, including, I think, during onboarding, right? The initial onboarding. I mean, I think there are opportunities where you can give the customer aha moments and celebrate wins, and really, you know, really kind of take advantage of that enthusiasm that comes out of the sales cycle and continue that momentum, because we've all talked about the trough of disillusionment that happens during implementation. So, I mean, I think if you could kind of start there and then just transition it to the rest of the post-sales functions, I mean, I think that's a huge value add. Because it's not just, you know, it's not just
Right. Well, it's because it's not just the go-to-market alignment is not just internal, although it is internal, right? You need to have marketing, sales, CS, product all in alignment, but that alignment needs to lead to the customer. Because if you're aligned, but you're not aligned to the customer, then you're not truly aligned. You're not really going to stay in business, right? And so you want to have that alignment all the way across. Definitely. That's a great point, Natasha.
Huge challenges with our sales team on a value sell. I mean, they would go into discovery. It was a blank sheet of paper and tell me what you want, you know, and it always led to these exorbitant.
Which is why it then takes till year 3 to get to an ICP, because they want to sell to everybody.
And then we also have the revolving door sales reps. You know, it took about a year for them to get to fully understand the product when they left. And so there were a myriad of challenges here. But if we could just hand this to the sales reps so they could be more prescriptive, and then it gives a customer something to look at and get some context, and then they can add what they feel like they really need for their business.
Absolutely. Michelle, did you have something to add as we're just closing up here today?
I'm just completely agreeing with you, Natasha. We're working through that all the time. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other last comments about what stage you were in, or an effective way that you were able to get from one stage to the next? Anything else to share before we close up today? Yeah.
Thank you for the space for this meeting. I think these are amazing resources for dig in. I was very, very late, so I'm sorry for that, but I'm really interested in keeping, you know, like these rounds of communications between all of customer success managers across the globe, right? I'm from Venezuela, working in a startup offering software as a service in Chile. So it's very interesting seeing new faces from other countries, like really sharing different experiences. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. So you have the link to Slack. Continue the conversation there. Next week, we're back to our regular time at 4:30 Pacific. And and I know that, and Mondays is when I post about the topics, but if you join the LinkedIn group, You'll see what all the topics are that are coming up. Oh, and next week is the 21st. So next week will be about resumes and the job search and networking. So we have some great things around that. And then on the 28th, we're going to be talking about startup economics and stock options and some things like that. So a couple other things in December, and then we're going to have a couple of weeks break in December. So thank you so much for coming today and joining. Love seeing everyone. Take some time out of your day. Really appreciate it. And be sure to connect on LinkedIn and Slack.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.